You know, lately I've been hearing people talk a lot about ghosting. For those of you who don't know, ghosting is when you decide to end a personal relationship with someone by just stopping all communication and disappearing from their life with no explanation. And apparently it's very common. And I'm sorry, but I gotta say, maybe I'm just getting older, but sometimes I look around and I don't even recognize the world I'm living in anymore. Things are changing every day, and well, not always for the better. Sometimes I'd like to just take a moment and talk about how things were, well, just a bit more simple back in my day. So people are ghosting now, huh? Back in my day, words had meaning. And if you wanted to avoid someone by ghosting, you had to die. It wasn't perfect, but it meant you never had to see that weird girl Beth anymore. Back in my day, we didn't have the TV show Stranger Things on Netflix. Back in my day, we had things like E.T., Firestarter, Goonies, Gremlins, Jaws, and Stand By Me. So come to think of it, we kind of did have Stranger Things. It was just spread out over a dozen or so different movies. Back in my day, we didn't have 15 Democratic candidates. We had 15 strains of polio. And thanks to anti-vaxxers, most of them are back. Back in my day, welcome back! Back in my day, you couldn't secretly mute people on Twitter if you didn't want to see their tweets. No, you had to man up and unfollow them. And then, when they asked you, why'd you unfollow me? You had to lie and say, well, my finger must have slipped. Then you could never unfollow them again, no matter how many times they posted about their IBS complications. Oh, did I unfollow you, Rusty? I'm sorry, my finger must have slipped. Well, I'm sorry, stop posting so often. Nobody cares that you got a new bandana. Back in my, we didn't have wireless Apple iPods, AirPods. We had wired Apple earbuds, and you didn't lose them. You threw them away because they were tangled in a rat king of thousands of other cables. Who knows what? And it was honestly easier just to chuck out $500 in wires and start over. And speaking of Apple, back in my day, the headphone jack and the charging port on your iPhone weren't the same hole. They were two separate holes, as God intended. And you know what? If you tried to put your headphones or your charging cable in the wrong hole, your iPhone just gave you a look like, nice try, you naughty little boy. Back in my day, we weren't getting rid of straws because they were bad for the environment. Back in my day, we used straws every single day, and we were happy. Probably because we were using them to snort cocaine. Thanks, straws, and thank you, cocaine. Hey, remember that time you saw me do cocaine, Rusty? What was that impression you have of me on cocaine? Back in my day, we didn't have an Elton John biopic. Back in my day, we had a Freddie Mercury biopic. And even though it was just meh, it won a bunch of Oscars. So I guess that's why we now have an Elton John biopic. Who would star in my biopic? I don't know, Rusty. Maybe, Matthew McConaughey? Tilda Swinton? Back in my day, people weren't getting canceled for the awful things they did and said. They were getting promoted at Fox News for the awful things they did and said. Back in my day, we didn't have March Madness. We had March Sadness. That was when Uncle Ron would come back from rehab claiming he was sober now. We all knew he was still on the sauce because his shirt was buttoned all wrong. And he'd say something like, I don't touch the stuff anymore, but I think one drink on St. Patrick's Day wouldn't hurt anyone, but he was wrong. It hurt everyone. But most especially, it hurt our neighbor Tim, who Uncle Ron shoved off the porch after shouting, eat concrete, college boy. Well, I'm sorry I had to do that, but sometimes this grizzled old grumpus has got to grease his gullet with some grouching. This has been Back in My Day.